Afternoon. This is a response to the situation that's developed in Speaker's Corner. I mean, you guys can't behave now I've left, can you? Come on. I mean, I always behave down at Speaker's Corner, sometimes. Is the issue between the man calling himself Bob of Speaker's Corner and Dr. David Mackreth, aka Doctor Who. Now, of course, I have no association with either. In fact, both of them block me on their channels. Both of them sort of ignore me. I mean, it's your choice. End of story. The thing is that this is a rebuttal of what Bob is doing to poor old Doctor Who. I mean, the way he speaks to him as the old man, the way he puts him down, the way he chirps along with his little parrot JC going, boring, boring. Well, I'll tell you one thing. And hi, Jake, by the way, I'll take a leaf out of your Ofsted book. I do want to say positive things about both of them. You cannot ignore what Bob actually does for the nation of England, in that he points out issues with another faith, which is not the absolute subject of this video. And by the way, they've been showing their true colours around here a bit, and I'm in a spot of bother. I will be okay, though. So that's any of you who know me in IRL, please send me a message, because I do need a bit of support here. But Bob claims to have the high ground, and this basically is because of his ecumenism. Well, that's actually quite funny, because the established church who he derides quite rightly, and this is where I feel a bit pig in the middle. Like, I mean, this new Archbishop of Canterbury, I mean, you know, everyone's got to love each other. You know, I mean, she is bringing a politicized version of Christianity in, which is essentially what Anglicanism is. In my opinion, the Anglican Church should never have been set up. But the person who sort of formed it in its current form was actually Elizabeth I. And she avoided a bloodbath by essentially allowing Anglo-Catholicism. Now, my understanding again of Bob is that he became a Christian, as he says. Now, I would then retort to everybody. I mean, the scariest verse in the Bible is, not everyone who calls me Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven. That is one verse to really check out, because in Bob's case, he's become a Roman Catholic. In fact, it gets worse. He's become an Anglo-Catholic. And I have reached the conclusion that Catholicism falls outside of the scope of the Bible. So if you look at Galatians chapter 1, verses 6 to 9, is essentially they preach a different gospel. They preach that you have to follow the Ten Commandments, and they preach things like praying to saints and Mary. Now, when I was actually back on Bob's course, obviously I couldn't ask a question. He justified this praying to saints by using verses from Maccabees. That's why the Catholic Church has their own version of the Bible, including the Apocrypha. Again, at the moment, I have no problem with Catholics or Anglo-Catholics. I mean, it's not like Bob's going to turn up with the Knights of the Templar anytime soon. Yeah? I mean, can you really imagine Pope Leo making a call for a ninth crusade? I don't think so. Now, if I haven't seen him for a while, Nick Tenconi, if he became Pope, you know. But anyway, Dr. David, he is authentic. Yeah, he works on his own. He uses his real name, but the trouble is there, Doctor Who, you're being a bit PC. You're being a bit PC because I totally understand, even though you're being braver than Bob, I can understand why Bob uses, what do they call it, pseudonym, you know, he uses a name Bob. I mean, that's not his name Bob. I bet his name's Colin, actually. I bet you used to see Bob at the station going, train, good train. Sorry, Bob, get a sense of humour. Doctor Who, get a sense of humour. And the thing is, Bob always has people with him. I mean, he had Simply Red with him. You know, Simply Red's the one who assaulted me. Of course, that's never gone to court because our two-tier police, who actually support Bob in a lot of cases, have done nothing about it. I mean, even though he pushed me to the ground, causing grazing, no charges, nothing. Yeah, this is the ridiculous thing about our two-tier justice system. Now, Bob, he does know, I said I'd say positive things about Bob. He knows the Bible very well. But the thing is, when I actually told his gaggle of followers that I was actually going to Mass for a bit, well, it was really the only time slot I could actually go to a church. And I thought, well, at least there's the ministry of the word. I was going just after the FA Cup final last year. And this is how I could actually look it up. The reading for that day was from the book of Acts. But what the Catholics do is they selectively take from the Bible and they omit bits. And the bit they omitted is that we are justified by faith. That is it. That's what Luther said. Luther said we are justified by faith. And the problem again with Bob politically and spiritually is that Luther is an absolute national hero in Germany. Luther is an absolute hero. He had some very bad views at the end of his life, which I won't go into because that's irrelevant unless someone raises it. But Luther stood up to the authoritarianism of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, as everybody knows, Henry VIII got his title because he was declared by the Pope as defender of the faith, because actually deep down, Henry VIII was a Roman Catholic. He became head of the church in England. Yes, he founded the Anglican Church, but it was his daughter who really sorted the problem out once and for all, because England avoided a bloodbath. Unlike in France and Germany, there was, relatively little sectarian problems because of the formation of the Church of England. Now, the Church of England, which Bob derides so much, I actually made a very influential Anglican laugh because, again, it's a sense of humour. I said it was a very good idea at the time, and she laughed. She thought it was funny, and it is funny. I personally would encourage anyone going to an Anglican church to go to your vicar and say that if he or she is preaching LGBT, tatty bye, or B, if they are a Bible-believing church, to actually disestablish from the Church of England. There are many churches in the Church of England who want to do that. But sorry, I digress. So Bob knows the Bible but preaches false doctrine. And the big problem I have is there's no such thing as a Christian nation. Now, this will be a second video on the pros and cons of Bob politically, because for sure you have to take your hat off to him for standing up to the radical Islamists. That's why I actually decided to leave him alone for a bit. And that's why my advice, and by the way, this is my only channel of communication with Dr. David. Yeah, my advice would be to maybe not engage for a bit, because Bob showed himself to be the one who didn't want to engage. My door is always open. It's now a Zoom door, but I am always willing to talk to Bob because, like I say, I cannot ignore the positive things he brings to that park in terms of the fact that I don't quite know the difference between his Bob channel and the Revelation channel. He definitely does, and I've never interfered with this. Neither have I ever sucked up to Muslims. And I thought, again, he showed himself to be a false teacher was when he said, oh, you'll become one of them soon. Really? That's not a very positive thing to say, Bob. Yeah? And I can also deal with that. I may as well deal with it now. One thing which the Bible says that we are all made in the image of God. It's very important. And the thing is, and this is where, again, I direct the issue of why did I apologise to, I think it was Sam Darwer and somebody else in Stratford, is I actually went up to them. This wasn't scripted. I didn't make a decision one way or t'other. But I said I was sorry for using insulting words. Now, if you watch that apology again, I said in future I would just ask questions both on your hadith and the Quran. How old was Aisha again? Now, I do not feel as equipped to take on Islamic apologists on the texts of the Quran and Hadith. I mean, I do know I got rid of a Islamic evangelist. God, they were after me in Qatar. You know, you could see I'm a bit fed up with the West. Absolutely, I'm fed up with liberalism. Absolutely, and I just got rid of him by saying, "Is al-Bukhari an authentic source?" I mean, thank God he never bothered me again after that. I mean, I used to sell my entire alcohol allowance to a Qatari. I mean, God, he had one on the go in the car. I still feel a bit guilty about that. But we are justified by faith. We all do stupid things occasionally. So there's a bit of hypocrisy. Bob feels that he's okay in discussing the issue of Jude's heresy. Now, Jude's heresy is that he's into modalism. I've actually got Jude's number because I got on the Christ is King WhatsApp group that only lasted 24 hours, by the way. Christ is King. Anyway, I actually have a certain degree of sympathy for Jude. It was quite clear to me that he wasn't a true Christian. And it's actually quite sad. Bob calling someone prideful is actually quite scary because I think Bob is quite prideful. I think that his 10,000 followers or whatever have gone completely to his head. But like I say, let's be fair and balanced here. Bob does the nation a service by at least having the freedom to speak. He speaks out against Islamic evangelists, even though I just pray that Bob is on a journey and he will eventually come to the error of his ways. Now, that's a hand of friendship, matey. You know, I actually, towards the end, said to Bob, I was actually quite friendly, so I'm digress. I'll get back onto Jude. Now, you know, Bob was basically talking about this with Jude, and he accused Jude of being prideful. It's quite correct there. Jude is very prideful. I mean, Jude has a better dress sense. Jude, again, is, he was good in his head knowledge about what actually the Islamic faith is all about. And I think that there needs to be a royal commission on what Islam actually teaches, because Bob will basically turn around and say, well, you sectarians and Elizabeth I, you made deals with the Turks. Well, the thing is, politically, Elizabeth I had a problem. She was surrounded by France and Spain. Spain was a much more powerful economy at the time. And yes, she made some deals with the Ottoman Empire. But you see, that was the political reality at the time. So in the last few times, I haven't been to Speaker's Corner since September of last year. It may even be longer than that. I started to sort of try and take a different tack with Bob. At the point, I actually wrote to him and said, look, I'll give you an entente. Because, again, I don't see Roman Catholicism as an immediate political threat to the realm. And I would say that, for instance, Charlie Kirk dealt with the matter because Bob claims he's a humanist. I mean, I'm sure he was. Possibly Charlie Kirk was a humanist. But he navigated the issue with a much more greater finesse and skill that Bob the Elder does. I mean, I think it is disgraceful the way young Bob is being used as a potential new Charlie Kirk, because he doesn't have the experience. He needs to go back to school. But Kirk, and Bob highlighted this on his channel, he said that essentially Reformed Christians tend to sort of like shove Mary away. You shouldn't make statues of her. That is idolatry. You shouldn't pray to her. That is idolatry. But he essentially said that there was an overreaction. And I actually went to a similar talk in Essex on this. It was a Churches Together, which they have a special relationship with the Catholic Church. They don't give the Catholics free rein, but they sort of let them participate to an extent. I would have to ask more about it. But the speaker I saw in Essex, she said that we should look up to Mary. We should see her as a role model. We should see her as an example. she's not sinless. She had other children. And basically, the idea that Mary was sinless is again false doctrine. But that said, she agreed to God's plan. She had faith. And when the Archangel Gabriel essentially said to you, you're going to be an unmarried mother in, 3rd or 4th century Judea, good luck with that one, because that was one of the things that was said about Jesus. Like when they said Mary's son, that was an insult. So I do know my Bible, Bob. I know that there's the Catholic hymn that goes, Mary's son, and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is, I did go to Mass for a bit just to sort of check in. And I still came out with the conclusion that this is a false church, the Church of Rome. And, she agreed to God's plan. She agreed to be an unmarried mother. I mean, how many people do you get down at the DSS saying, oh, well, the Holy Spirit's the Father? Mary had an extremely important part in God's plan. So the other issue I have with Bob biblically is his stand on Israel. That seems to sort of waver a bit. I'm in trouble with that again, by the way, on a personal level. Anyone who actually is IRL, can you give me a message? He's a bit lukewarm. He basically chops and changes. And it's basically also apparent that there's I call it the Cowboy Israel stand. When a load of Shia fanatics came down to Speaker's Corner, it was either June or July last year, and they literally started rampaging and they've attacked the Cowboy stand several times. I actually went over to Bob, who was bobbing, preaching as he does, loves the sound of his own voice. And I said, Bob, your Christian brothers need your help. No, Bob. So, this issue of between Doctor Who and Bob is, if I were down there this Sunday, and I'm not going to be down there, won't be down there for several weeks. I've got a bit of an issue going on here. But the issue there is that my advice to Doctor Who would be you've made your point, you've established that Bob will not talk about the issue. But let's get on to this thing about sectarian. 17 minutes into the conversation. So I've got God's question. To be sectarian is to possess a limited range of interest, purpose, or scope, or to be devoted to a particularly narrow tradition or belief. So it talks about the cult of Mormonism. It talks about the Church of Christ temple lot. And it says sectarianism can be violent at times. Now, as someone of mixed parentage, I actually find that quite offensive that you use that term. My father is from a Methodist background, but he converted to Catholicism. I mean, my God, yeah? His mother, who he absolutely idolized, and he lost her at the age of 14, she was a Methodist. And I believe that she was a Bible-believing Methodist. They hadn't gone woke at that time. Because she would have died in 1940-something. And, of course, my mother never met her. And basically, my dad had to take over the running of the household. But the trouble is, he went on a date with a Catholic a Catholic nurse, slip of the tongue. Not my mother, by the way, and she got him into Catholicism. I mean, Gordon Bennett. Anyway, I'm not sectarian. Again, this ecumenist thing falls on its head because who's the other tool that's going around at the moment? Richard Inman. Richard Inman is clearly an Ulster Unionist. He clearly recognises, and I agree with him, some of his content is very interesting, that the situation in Ireland seems to have been suppressed at the moment. I mean, I happen to believe that the unionist position was totally sound in the 70s and 80s. I actually think that Ian Paisley gets a bad press because Ian Paisley as an MP, would apparently not even ask his constituency what religion they privately decided to do. Ian Paisley, in my opinion, was not a sectarian. I would say that some Catholics are sectarian. And let me explain the problem, and this will be video 2. The very liberals who need to be sort of got out of their liberalism, both spiritually and politically, are the very ones who know what went on in France during the 14th century. They are very well aware of what went on in the north of Ireland, and they don't want a bar of religious extremists wanting to impose their will on somebody. So Bob is the sectarian, not Doctor Who, not me. Bob is the one promoting Christian nationalism. Let's break down what that means. It means Roman Catholicism. It means a return to Queen Mary, Bloody Mary. It means a return to the state telling you what you can and cannot do. And the current lefty, wokey-dokey, cafe latte swigging masses are not going to listen to that. They're just going to do that. So I don't have a problem with Bob's clear, arguments he has with the Islamic extremists down the park. And I know they're Islamic extremists. I mean, I wish I'd got it on camera because, I don't have the resources that Bob has. I wish I'd caught the day I actually pulled out my 25 sobriety chip on Usman. His face just went, I can get James in. I pity Muslims. They are basically listening, in my opinion, to a false doctrine. But my tack and approach with them is rather different, mainly because they have so much animosity in their face. So I talk to them. There's nothing wrong with that. So my challenge to Bob would be to sit down and talk. I know he's not going to do that. The other thing, he cited Jono. Jono doesn't help. Jono can be a slanderer at times. Jono is a product of his age. He's basically a product of Blairite education. He's a product of not really looking into facts, even though he can school Bob on his knowledge of early church fathers. I think, Jono is a great mind. I'm not sure if Jono is a Christian or not. I hope so. I hope that one day Bob does actually realise the error of his ways. And I don't want to go, into pushy-shovey with Bobites. You know what I mean? It's like all the Bobites down at the park, like JJ and some of the other guys down there, they know I'll talk to them in a friendly sense. And, the funny thing is with Bob, he says, everyone wants Jorma for a coffee, but not you. And he's looking at me and I'm going, hi, So this is the end of the matter as far as I am concerned. Bob does, God, if I was Prime Minister, I'd give Bob an OBE at least. The fact that he actually has the gall to actually go down to Speaker's Corner, I'd take my hat off to him. Well, okay, I don't have a hat, but if I did have a hat, I would take my hat off to him on that one. But the next video, which I'm going to do, is to really question his role in trying to bring the right together. Because again, I can see serious flaws with the way the so-called patriot movement, the Christian nationalists, I can see where this is going and it's not going to end well. But anyway, thank you for watching. Please like this video. And if you're really crazy, subscribe.